Hello and welcome to Connect the World. I'm Lynda Kinked, sitting in for Becky Anderson. Well, we begin in Turkey, where a sweeping crackdown and calls for the death penalty to be reintroduced are worrying Western allies. More than 7,000 people have been arrested and more than 8,700 security officials have been suspended, all for a plot to overthrow President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. 27 alleged ringleaders were brought into court on Monday. They did not have access to lawyers before their appearance. Senior international correspondent Arwa Damon joins me now live from Istanbul. Arwa, Mr. Erdogan wants the US to extradite a Muslim cleric from Pennsylvania who's the accused ringleader of this attempted coup. Has any evidence been presented at this stage?
As far as we know, not yet. The Turkish government, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, are accusing a cleric named Fethullah Gülen, who has been in self-imposed exile in the United States, of basically being the mastermind of this coup. And it's worth noting that it's not the first time that the Turkish government has leveled accusations against Gülen as being somehow implicit in trying to foment unrest in Turkey or being behind protests against the government. They do say that they have compiled evidence that will prove to the U.S. authorities that Fethullah Gülen was in fact behind this coup. And President Erdogan made something very clear. He said how the U.S. reacts to this evidence will be a clear indication of what kind of a friend America is. So there is, to a certain degree, the potential out there for more tensions between America and the United States at a time when neither can really afford it, Lynda.
And of course, the funerals for many of the 232 people who died during that attempted coup continue. You were at some of those funerals yesterday.
We were, and the scenes there are absolutely heartbreaking, because not only is the population here trying to come to terms with the violence, which was entirely unexpected, there are also these growing widespread fears about what this attempted coup means for the future of their country.
It's the choking sorrow of loss, overwhelming both young and old. Some barely able to walk. Others collapsing under the weight of their emotions. Loved ones, neighbors, and strangers came to funerals across Istanbul for those who perished. This is a nation already deeply divided, united in this moment by grief. 48 hours after Friday's failed coup, Hülya Gedik is among the many still trying to come to terms with it all.
Every bit of news we got that night, every explosion was not something that was just happening outside. It was as if each one tore our soul apart.
And few know how or if their country will come together.
Security is understandably very tight as the president and other top government officials attend these funerals. This is a nation that, yes, had been bracing itself for more violence, but they were expecting something in the form of yet another horrific ISIS attack or strikes carried out by the PKK. No one who we've spoken to said they ever imagined that an attempted military coup would be what brought the country to the brink of such instability.
Amid the pain at one of the mass funerals, calls for capital punishment, banned by Turkish law. In response, President Erdogan pledged he would take that demand to the relevant authorities and that the decision cannot be delayed, a chilling promise. Erdogan has been a deeply polarizing figure. He does have significant support, and most of those who oppose what they describe as his increasing authoritarian rule do not support removing him from power in a coup. But there are growing fears that he will use this to purge the nation of any voices of dissent. Thousands have been rounded up in sweeping operations, most members of the military, including the commander of the Incirlik Air Base, from where the U.S. launches its anti-ISIS attacks in Syria and Iraq. Also detained, judges, prosecutors, and others. And the government is demanding that the U.S. detain and extradite Fethullah Gulen, the cleric in self-imposed exile in America, whom the Turkish government says is behind the coup, an allegation he has denied. The people power that arguably saved Erdogan is still in the streets, continuing to heed his call, creating an odd celebratory atmosphere as Turkey is dragged into uncharted territory.
And how the government ends up deciding to navigate this uncharted territory is arguably going to be defining this nation's future. On the one hand, President Erdogan could continue with these wide sweeping crackdowns and, as his opponents fear, effectively detain or somehow silence any voices of dissent, as we have been reporting, or he could capitalize on this moment of rare unity between the country's major political parties, who did all stand together and condemn this attempted coup.
Okay, Arwa, Damon, thank you so much for your reporting. Live for us from Istanbul, we also have our Nick Robertson, our international diplomatic editor, covering developments from Ankara. And Nick, 6,000 people have been rounded up from all ranks within the armed forces, many stripped of their clothes and are being detained in horse stables.
Yeah, Lynda, the numbers are big and they keep growing. We now understand it's over 7,000 military and others who've been detained. 1/3 of the country's leading generals and admirals have all been rounded up. Some people we've seen photographs of have been detained in conditions that look very rudimentary, stripped to everything but their underwear, kneeling in sawdust in what we're told is a horse stables here in Ankara, with their hands flexicuffed behind their backs. We've also seen close-up photographs of some of the 27 men that the government alleges were behind, leading this coup. They're in that courtroom behind me there right now. But the photographs we saw just yesterday, at least one of those men alleged to be a coup leader, a career officer, a 4-star general. He's served for NATO in Afghanistan. He's had many high and distinguished awards. He looked as if he'd been badly beaten about the head. His ear was bandaged, his arms also heavily bruised. And when he appeared in court today, his injuries appeared worse than they did yesterday. So certainly at the moment, for many people in Turkey, this is raising questions about how people are being detained. The numbers, again, huge. Talk about suspensions. Aside from those people detained, you have 8,777 police officers suspended, 1,500 members of the Ministry of Finance suspended, more than 2,700 judges suspended. So these are big, big numbers right now. In fact, the government has said that all government workers are having their current leave cancelled, but they need to continue turning up for work at the moment. That's the situation the government faces.